May the name of the God of Jacob protect you.
Psalm 20, verse 7. Let's read the entire psalm together. May the Lord answer you when you are in distress. May the name of the God of Jacob protect you. May he send you help from the sanctuary and grant you support from Zion. May he remember all your sacrifices and accept your burnt offerings. May he give you the desire of your heart and make all your plans succeed. May we shout for joy over your victory and lift up our banners in the name of our God. May the Lord grant all your requests. Now this I know, the Lord gives victory to his anointed. He answers him from his heavenly sanctuary with the victorious power of his right hand. Some trust in chariots and some in horses, but we trust in the name of the Lord our God. They are brought to their knees and fall, but we rise up and stand firm. Lord, give victory to the King. Answer us when we call. I don't know if you've noticed, but 3 times in this psalm, we see a reference to the name of God. In verse 1, may the name of the God of Jacob protect you. In verse 5, lift up our banners in the name of our God. And then, here we are today in verse 7, some trust in chariots and some in horses, but we trust in the name of the Lord our God. But what does it mean to trust? Well, one of my favorite verses has always been, I know I mention a favorite verse in every single video, but I really do have that many favorite verses. This one I put on my graduation announcement, and I've used it and shared it so many times because I need this reminder. In Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, I cannot trust in my own understanding or in my own knowledge. No, in all my ways, I need to acknowledge him because he will be the one to direct my path. If I try and direct it, we cannot trust in ourselves. Jeremiah 17, verse 9 says, the heart is deceitful above all things and beyond cure. Who can understand it? I, the Lord, search the heart and examine the mind to reward each person according to their conduct, according to what their deeds deserve. We cannot trust in our own heart and our own thoughts because it is deceitful above all things. All right, well, then I'll maybe trust in others that are a little bit less deceitful. In verse 5, it says, this is what the Lord says, cursed is the one who trusts in man, who draws strength from mere flesh, whose heart turns away from the Lord. That person will be like a bush in the wastelands. They will not see prosperity when it comes. They will dwell in the parched places of the desert, in a salt land where no one lives. Oh, well, that's not any better. So what do I do? Where do I put my trust? Verse 7, but blessed is the one who trusts in the Lord, whose confidence is in him. They will be planted like a tree. They will be like a tree planted by the water that sends out its roots by the stream and does not fear when heat comes. Its leaves are always green. It has no worries in a year of drought and never fails to bear fruit. That's who I want to trust in. I want to trust in my rock eternal. Isaiah 26, 3 and 4, you will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are steadfast, or as another version say, those whose minds are fixed on you, because they trust in you. Trust in the Lord forever, for the Lord himself is the rock eternal. He's the one in whom we can trust. He's the one that doesn't change. He's the one that has the whole perspective. He can see it all. Not like the 5 Chinese guys who were asked to describe an elephant. They were blind. These 5 blind men came up to the elephant, and the first one said, okay, it's like a wall. Yeah, it's like a wall. That's exactly what that's what it reminds me of. That's what I think it is. And the second was like, a wall? I don't think so. No, it's more like a hose, a big thick hose from which, water comes out of it. It's a big hose. A big hose? Said the third one. No. It's more like a thin hose with a tail or like a brush at the end of it. Yes, that's what it is. And it stinks. Why are y'all talking about hoses and walls? The shortest one said, no, it's more like the trunk of a tree. Yeah, with all of those wrinkles and knobs and things like that. And yeah, the texture, it reminds me of the trunk of a tree. So then the fifth one chimes in and he says, okay, I could maybe go with the tree description, but you've all got it wrong. It's more like a big leaf that flows in the wind. Okay, which of them were right and which of them were wrong? Well, all of them were right and all of them were wrong because none of them was seeing the whole elephant. Only God can see the whole elephant. Only God has the full perspective of everything that's going on. He's the only one in whom we can trust. We might want to fix things or deal with things in a certain way, but we're only looking at one part of the situation. But we can trust in the one who is in control and who can see the entire elephant. And that's why the victory and the joy that come through him, we can trust in. He has the big picture and he can see things beyond what we can see. Just like one of the stories that I like that refers to this is with Joseph. At the end of Genesis, in chapter 50, we see that Jacob has died. So his dad dies and his brothers who had sold him into slavery, who had betrayed him, who had thrown him in a pit, all of these horrible things are like, uh-oh. Dad died. He's going to be out to get us now. Joseph is, so they come with their shaking knees. And in verse 18, they said, okay, we're your slaves. But in verse 19, Joseph responds, don't be afraid. Am I in the place of God? You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. So then don't be afraid. I will provide for you and your children. And he reassured them and spoke kindly to them. We can trust that God has a more eternal perspective and that, like the promise in Romans 8:28, that all things work together for good. It's not that some of those horrible and tragic things were God's will. It's not like he wants us to be suffering or wants us to go through difficult times. And if we tell someone who is going through that difficult time, oh, it's just God's will. No, that is probably the worst thing we could say. We do not need to fear the circumstance, but we can trust in the God that is bigger and greater and more sovereign than any circumstance. He's got this. He's in control. And even in spite of whatever happens, he can bring about good through that. We can trust him with that. He knows and wants what's best. But we also are given permission to lament in that process of reaching that place of trust. In Psalm chapter 13, and we could pick so many Psalms that have so many different examples, but this one is only 6 verses, and each set of 2 verses is a section of the stages through which we often go when we are in that process of learning or remembering to trust. Psalm 13, verses 1 and 2. How long, Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I wrestle with my thoughts and day after day have sorrow in my heart? How long will my enemy triumph over me? This first section is a lament, a crying out, a frustration, a despair, distress. And that's okay. Then the second section, look on me and answer, Lord my God, give light to my eyes or I will sleep in death. And my enemy will say, I have overcome him, and my foes will rejoice when I fall. This next section is crying out to God. The first one is just, oh, woe is me, a lament, a pain, a crying. But this second section is crying out to the one who has power to do something about it. And it's questioning him, and that's okay too. Then in this third section, it's a place of trust. Verses 5 and 6, but I trust in your unfailing love. My heart rejoices in your salvation. I will sing the Lord's praise, for he has been good to me. The Lord has been good to us, and he will continue to faithfully walk with us through whatever it is that comes our way. We have that permission to lament and to question, but it brings us to a place of trust, trusting in the name of the Lord our God. I have come to appreciate more his name and what his name means and what his name looks like and how we can learn more about him through his name. He first reveals his name to Moses in the burning bush in Exodus chapter 3. And it's these Hebrew characters that we often transliterate as YHWH. And it's how we see Lord in all caps, not Lord with lowercase ORD. The other lowercase Lord means like master or commander or boss. But Lord in all caps is kind of the representation of those four letters that mean I am who I am. I will be who I will be. The I am who reveals himself in Exodus is the same I am who became flesh and dwelt among us and is speaking those I am statements to us in the book of John. And I wish I had time to go more into his name and how we can trust in the name of the Lord our God. But I invite you, if you would like to learn more, the most recent book that I have written is called I Already Am, Testimonies of Belief in the Great I Am. And we explore what his name means and how we can not only grow in our belief and trust in his name, but share those testimonies of belief with others and inviting them to trust in the name of the Lord our God. Because that is the promise that we have. And when we trust in the name of the Lord our God, even if we lament, even if we cry out in question, he promises that we can be victorious and joyful in battle. Thank you for trusting with us. And may we all walk together on this journey. God bless.
May the Lord answer you when you are in distress. May the name of the God of Jacob protect you. May he send you help from the sanctuary and grant you support from Zion. May he remember all your sacrifices and accept your burnt offerings. May he give you the desire of your heart and make all your plans succeed. Make all your plans succeed. May we shout for joy over your victory and lift up our banners in the name of our God.